Hello and welcome to another Cyberpunk 2077 video. Today, we'll be looking at the story of Cyberpunk 2077 and what transpires throughout V's short time in Night City. This story explanation will incorporate the good ending into the game, as this is the one which feels most natural and makes the most sense, leaving everyone happy. There will be spoilers in this video, so obviously I'll give you the 5-second countdown so you can, leave. Okay, let's go. Now we'll start with V. You can choose from 3 life paths to start with, but these just serve as a bit of background as to what V was doing before getting started in Night City. As a nomad, V was a member of the Backers, a nomad gang. V abandoned the Backers due to the family falling apart. They arrive in the Badlands on the outskirts of Night City, encounters car trouble, makes friends with the local sheriff, and climbs a radio mast and makes contact with their old clan to get information about smuggling some contraband across the border into Night City. V then sets off to meet the contact for the smuggling run, Jackie Wells. They set off for the border, bribe the guard, but get chased down by Arasaka border patrol agents. They survive and find out that the package they were smuggling is actually corporate property belonging to Arasaka. As a street kid, returning to Night City after 2 years in Atlanta, V starts in a bar called the El Coyote, sporting a very broken nose. V speaks to Pepe the barman, who is in trouble with a new fixer called Kirk Sawyer. In order to pay off Pepe's debt, V agrees to steal a high-class vehicle from a Corpo agent. This is where V meets Jackie Wells, as he's actually a thief after the same car. After an argument over who is going to take the car, the NCPD show up. The car belongs to an Arasaka agent who orders the police to dispose of them, as he doesn't have the time or effort to testify in court. And finally, as a Corpo, V is working in counterintelligence for Arasaka. V is stressed by the job and is mentally and physically drained as a result. V is called to their boss's office. The boss, Jenkins, is on a conference call and flatlines everyone there. Brutal. Jenkins' boss Susan Abernathy calls and says that she is displeased with what he just did. Fed up of Abernathy, Jenkins tasks V to kill Abernathy and hands them a large wad of cash to arrange it. V flies via AV to Lizzie's bar and meets their old friend, you guessed it, Jackie Wells. But just after V gets there, Arasaka agents turn up and strip V of their corporate status, losing all their money. So this is now where the 3 life paths converge, and V's journey follows pretty much the same outcome, or destiny if you like. We transport to 6 months later, and V and Jackie are completing a job for a lady called Wakako Okada, and are looking for a person named Sandra Dorset. Turns out she's been kidnapped by scavengers. On the way back from the mission, after saving Sandra, we find out that Watson is going under lockdown. Jackie is off on a date and V needs to sleep. Upon waking up the next morning, V meets up with Jackie again, who tells us that we've got a job from one of the top fixers in Night City, a man named Dexter DeShawn. He wants to meet up with us, but first we need to go and see our Ripper doc called Vic. Victor gives us new cyberware upgrades so that we can be better equipped for this mission. Upon meeting Dexter, he tells us that we need to pick up a Militech spider bot from a gang called the Maelstrom. This mission really serves as a way to get in with Dexter DeShawn and hit the big leagues. After this, he sets us up with a new contact for a new job with a working girl named Evelyn Parker. She introduces V to Judy Alvarez, a brain dance technician working with the Mox. Using her brain dance equipment, Judy is able to find out through virtue footage captured by Evelyn that Yorinobu Arasaka, the son of the great Saburo Arasaka, has what is known as the Relic, a biochip which stores one's consciousness on it after death, a personality construct. Putting this biochip in a new body would effectively render the person immortal. V's gig, or mission, is to steal this chip. V heads to the Afterlife to meet up with Dex, netrunner T-Bug and Jackie to plan the heist. Later on, V and Jackie make it to the chip and grab it. All is going swimmingly until Yorinobu is about to walk through the door, meaning Jackie and V have to hide behind a big one-way screen. In walks his father Saburo with his bodyguard Takamura, who leaves the room. V and Jackie then witness Yorinobu murder his father in cold blood. Yorinobu leaves the room and V and Jackie make a break for it, but T-Bug is compromised and killed in the process. Jackie and V are discovered by Arasaka agents and have to jump, falling a long way, but surviving. The biochip's protective case is damaged, and as a result the chip is losing its integrity as it needs to be kept at low temperature. Evelyn tells us the only way to preserve its integrity is to slot it into our neural port. Jackie volunteers. Upon escaping, Jackie is wounded and succumbs to his injuries in the taxi. Before he dies, he gives V the biochip and V inserts it into their own neural port. We then meet up with Dex at an agreed destination, the No-Tell Motel, but he turns on us, shooting us and killing us. Obviously this is so he can distance himself from the failed heist and the inevitable heat that is coming his way as a result. It's time for a flashback. Now enter Johnny Silverhand. Upon finishing a gig in the year 2023, Johnny says goodbye to everyone and leaves on a chopper. Headed for Arasaka Tower, Johnny and his crew aim to blow the towers up with a nuclear bomb. They succeed in planting the bomb and Johnny uploads a virus onto their subnet, but on escaping, Johnny is incapacitated by Adam Smasher. Johnny then meets Saburo Arasaka, who transfers Johnny's consciousness onto a biochip, killing him. You can guess by now which biochip that is. Anyways, back to the present day, V awakens somehow at a landfill site, not in the best shape, and the first person they spot is Dexter DeShawn. He drags V towards Takamura, who is now Yorinobu's bodyguard. Evidently he is there to deliver V to Yorinobu. Takamura then executes Dex and puts V in his car. V falls unconscious, but when they come to, it seems that all hell has broken loose. Takamura is now on the run from Arasaka agents himself. What happened to him isn't clear yet, but we end up helping him out and kill the assassins, but eventually V collapses and Takamura gets them to Vic. After many days pass, V wakes up and Vic delivers bad news. He explains that the biochip V inserted into their neural port contains the construct of Johnny Silverhand, a rocker boy terrorist from the past. Technically, V died and was kickstarted back to life. The chip activated when V was dead for a bit. This also explains why the chip didn't affect Jackie, as he gave it to V before he died. The nanites in the biochip fix the damage from the gunshot to the head. Vic goes on to explain that essentially the biochip and the personality construct within it will kick V out of their own body gradually until there's nothing left of V's consciousness. Essentially it's rewriting V with Johnny Silverhand. Vic delivers the news that V only has around 3 weeks to live until they're completely gone. He gives V some pills to either block Johnny and make him disappear temporarily, or pills to basically give Johnny control and speed the whole process up. The chip can't be removed or V will die. V goes back to sleep at their apartment but wakes up and meets Johnny properly for the first time. Come morning, V receives a call from Takamura as he wants to meet at Tom's diner. He wants to find Evelyn Parker as she knows how to get to Yorinobu Arasaka, as Takamura wants to get to Yorinobu so he can pay for his crime. He also tells V that he needs them to testify as a witness to Saburo's murder. In return, Takamura tells us that Arasaka can save V from destruction by removing the biochip. V agrees to track down Evelyn Parker and track down Anders Hellman, the man who invented the relic. However, Anders Hellman has defected from Arasaka and simply disappeared. Takamura tells V that all the leads he found point to one place, the Afterlife, where the Queen of Fixers usually is, a fixer by the name of Rogue. This is the same Rogue from the Arasaka Tower mission in 2023. V thinks it's a decent shot asking Rogue about Anders Hellman. V leaves Tom's diner and calls Judy asking about Evelyn. Seems that Judy is pretty pissed at Evelyn but won't say why, so we meet up with Judy at Lizzie's bar. Upon arrival, Judy is concerned that V has bad intentions in regard to Evelyn, thinking that V intends to use her as a scapegoat for the failed heist. V explains to Judy that the only information they need is who Evelyn was working for and who wanted the biochip. Judy tells us that Evelyn was back working at a club called Clouds as she thought it would be safer there than at Lizzie's. So V arrives at Clouds and after some matchmaking, V finds out that Evelyn was attacked by a client in booth 11. After doing some stellar detective work, V ascertains that Evelyn wasn't actually attacked by a client, she was remotely hacked by a netrunner. V is able to get into the offices and this is confirmed by a computer terminal entry stating that a netrunner did in fact attack Evelyn by inducing a psychotic episode in her. It also states in this entry that the doll is now considered not suitable for use. V confronts the manager of Clouds, a horrid man by the name of Woodman. He then gives in and tells V that he got an order from upper management to recycle her, so he sent her to a shady ripper doc by the name of Fingers to try and fix her chip which was fried. V calls him out on this, and Woodman then actually reveals that the ripper doc paid him for Evelyn. Upon travelling to see Fingers with Judy, Fingers, after some persuasion, tells us that some extreme brain dance editors took her, saying she'd be good material for an XBD with the Death's Head badge on it. Essentially this means snuff. Overall, after managing to get a copy of the BD and some investigation, V and Judy storm the scavenger compound where Evelyn is being held and save her, but she's in a very bad way, having been brutally tortured. Back at Judy's, Judy manages to get a virtue from Evelyn's chip, of her having a conversation with Brigitte, leader of the Voodoo Boys, a gang of netrunners. It turns out that Brigitte hired Evelyn to record the virtue of Yorinobu's place so they could steal the biochip themselves. This explains who tried to flatline Evelyn at Clouds. They did this in retaliation for going against them and stealing the chip for herself. In order to get in touch with the Voodoo Boys, V calls Mr. Hands, a fixer in the city. He sets V up with the Voodoo Boys' contact at a chapel in Pacifica. This contact tells V to seek out someone called Placide. Placide wants V to sort a problem for him, before he will introduce V to Brigitte. Some of the Animals gang are holed up in the Grand Imperial Mall, and there's something inside which Placide wants us to get. A van. The real reason for this mission is that the van is netrunner tech, and the Animals gang are just hired protection for this netrunner inside the mall. Eventually, V reaches the netrunner, who is a Netwatch agent trying to take down the Voodoo Boys subnet Agwe. The agent tells V that the Placide has infected V with a virus in order to take out V and the Netwatch agents. V has a choice here, to either trust the Netwatch agent or not. Either way, V leaves and goes back to the Voodoo Boys hangout, and meets Brigitte, who we just freed after being trapped in the net. Brigitte is mad at Placide for screwing V over but wishes to examine the chip. She tells V that she needs Johnny's construct in order to get beyond the Black Wall and speak to Alt Cunningham. Given that the Voodoo Boys' main goal is to breach the Black Wall, this makes sense as to why they wanted the chip, so that Johnny could lead them to Alt Cunningham. A trip to cyberspace gives us another flashback, to 2013 this time. Here we meet Alt Cunningham, Johnny's net-running girlfriend. Outside, after the gig, Johnny and Alt are attacked. Alt is kidnapped and Johnny is severely wounded. A chat with a journalist called Thompson reveals that Alt was the main target. She was taken by Arasaka because they wanted to create an AI out of her for their Soul Killer program. Turns out that Alt wrote the program too. Johnny goes to meet Rogue at the Atlantis, an ex-girlfriend and fixer, and after a gunfight with Arasaka agents, they come up with a plan to storm Arasaka Tower and save Alt. However, on getting there, they find Alt is dead. Although she died, her consciousness managed to escape and she fled to the net. Her consciousness was held captive in the Arasaka subnet later on as she was captured during the Fourth Corporate War. This is what led Johnny to the mission in 2023. He uploaded a program to wipe Soul Killer and destroy the towers. V now meets Alt, who explains that although she designed Soul Killer, she is powerless as Arasaka have since repurposed it, but says that if she can get access to Mikoshi, she can help by untangling V and Johnny's neural networks and reinserting V's consciousness. They now have a plan. Upon leaving the chapel, V has another attack from the relic. After recovering, V makes their way to the Afterlife where they meet Rogue. Rogue is having a rather heated conversation with a lady called Panam. V speaks to Rogue and tells her they need to track down Anders Hellman. After paying Rogue a fair wedge of cash, V is informed that Hellman is hiding behind a Chinese corporation called Kang Tao and will soon be transported out of the city on an AV. Rogue tells V that this AV cannot be hijacked in Night City airspace but can be jacked outside of the city in Jackson planes. Rogue puts V in touch with Panam, the lady from before. Turns out she's a nomad who runs merch for Rogue. Only thing is, Panam lost a shipment. Rogue wants V to help her get it back. In turn, Panam can get V help from the Aldecados in stopping the AV. Upon getting her car back and delivering the lost merch, Panam agrees to help V get started on finding Hellman. Panam's plan to help capture Hellman is to bring the AV out of the sky by overloading a power plant while the AV flies over it, essentially delivering an EMP. After reaching the AV and taking out the Kang Tao forces, it's revealed Hellman is actually being held at a nearby gas station. After capturing Hellman, V calls Takamura to explain they have captured Hellman and transport him to the Sunset Motel. Now conscious, Hellman explains to V after examination that because their neural network has deteriorated so badly it cannot function on its own, that the chip is basically eating away at V's brain. Takamura then arrives and takes over. V leaves and suffers another attack from the relic. V then drives to meet up with Takamura and his contact Sandayu Oda, Hanako Arasaka's bodyguard. This meet doesn't go well, but it does serve to tell them that there is a parade to honour Saburo and this parade is the perfect chance to get to Hanako. In need of a fixer to get intel on the parade, V calls Wakako Okado. When arriving, Wakako gives V and Takamura intel on the parade, which will be useful to their mission. A couple of days later, Takamura calls, wants to meet V at the market where the parade is taking place. After doing some recon with Goro at the market, he instructs V to gain access to the market security systems so they can find out where the snipers are going to be located. The next phase of the plan involves meeting at the Arasaka Industrial Park. This is where they are keeping the parade float which will be carrying Hanako Arasaka, and Takamura needs V to upload a virus into the float system. After this is successful, V heads to meet Takamura at the market to carry out the mission. After neutralising the 3 snipers, V is instructed to take out the Arasaka netrunner who has taken control of all the networks. After doing this, V has to do battle with Sandayu Oda, Hanaka's bodyguard. After defeating him, V hacks the system and Takamura abducts Hanako. Takamura gets in touch and tells V to meet him as an agreed hideout. Upon arriving, V is able to talk to Hanako, but after barely speaking to her, an Arasaka assault squad storm the building, taking Hanako. V can either choose to save or leave Takamura. Either way, after fighting their way out, V suffers another serious attack from the relic. After waking up at the Sunset Motel, it's revealed that Johnny took control and got V to the motel. After investigating a knock on the door, an unrecognised woman walks in. It's actually Hanako Arasaka using a proxy to be able to communicate. She tells V that she believes Yorinobu killed Saburo and wants Yorinobu to pay. She wants to meet V in person. There are numerous endings, but as mentioned, this path will follow the good ending. At this point in my game, I'd entered into a relationship with Judy Alvarez after helping her avenge Evelyn's death and helped Panam and their Aldecados with their mission in capturing the Basilisk. So, upon reaching the meeting place, Embers, Hanako tells V that she and the Arasaka board knew all along that Yorinobu killed their father. She tells V that she can get them access to Mikoshi, but she needs V to tell the Arasaka board of his treason. She wants Yorinobu out of the way. V suffers the worst attack yet from the relic and ends up at Vix. Johnny shows up and tells V he should let him take control and go to see Rogue. Misty takes V to the roof. This is where V is told to make another choice, to take the easy way out and shoot himself, to trust Hanako Arasaka and her plan, or to storm Arasaka with the help of the Aldecados. Johnny tells V to call someone they care about in case things go wrong. After a brief conversation, V calls Panam and calls in a favour. After arriving at the Aldecados camp, V meets Nomad netrunner Dakota, who patches V into the net to speak with Alt, who tells us that Mikoshi will be destroyed in the process of separating V and Johnny, and all the souls imprisoned within will be integrated with Alt. Alt gives V a shard to insert in Mikoshi in order for her to gain access. On returning to reality, V is made an honorary Aldecado and after a good night's sleep gets ready to head out with the rest of the clan. After a tense firefight with Arasaka forces, V, Panam and Saul manage to make it into Arasaka from underneath the building using an access tunnel and the impressive Basilisk. V manages to insert the shard into the system, giving Alt access. Alt tells V that the path to Mikoshi is now open. However, a surprise awaits. Adam Smasher turns up and kills Saul. On defeating Smasher, V tells Smasher before finishing him off that Johnny sends his regards. V is now able to approach Mikoshi and jacks into the system, rebooting V's system. V is now in cyberspace again and talks to Johnny and Alt. Alt has split Johnny and V from one another using Soulkiller. V is technically now a construct themselves and is being copied into V's body. Alt tells V that unfortunately, due to the damage to their body by the relic and DNA reconfiguration, that this means that V only has about 6 months left to live. This is because V's body will see the consciousness as an intruder. Johnny tells us he is staying with Alt beyond the Black Wall to become part of her. Alt gives V an option for Johnny to take V's body and remain there, and for V to go with Alt. V chooses to live out whatever life they have left. Upon waking up in Panam's truck, V steps out to have a brief conversation with Panam and look over Night City one last time. V and the Nomads are heading out to Arizona to settle there. After driving to the camp, V leaves Night City with Judy, Panam and the Nomads. So that's it. I felt overall it was a great storyline. Obviously I chose female V as my character. The good ending involves going it alone without Johnny's help, not trusting Arasaka, helping Panam earlier in the game, and helping Judy with the side quests to avenge Evelyn's death and entering into a relationship with her. Judy mentions that she was depressed in Night City and now, with V and being taken away from Night City, means that she's truly happy. I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed putting it all together. Please leave a like and subscribe to stay connected and support the channel. Take care everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.